Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. Senator Tuberville of Alabama was making racist remarks about black people, and now it's come to light that the Hispanic president of the Los Angeles City Council has been holding meetings with the other Hispanic council members, along with other figures in the Latino community in LA, and they were planning how to carve up the city and how to specifically lock black people out. A recording that was made last year has come to light showing Nuri Martinez saying, among other things, F the DA. Why? Because he's with the blacks. And she also made it crystal clear she sees herself as fighting a race war against black people. Not because they did anything to her, but just because. As far as she's concerned, the DA isn't going after black people. Remember Anita Alvarez, the state's attorney for Cook County? That is Chicago. When Laquan McDonald was murdered, Alvarez was the one most responsible for refusing to prosecute the murderer, Jason Van Dyke. Well, so much for, we're all in this together. But the main comments from this heifer that got her all these headlines was she called a fellow council member's adopted black child a monkey and said that the child was being raised as if he was white, and also saying that she wanted to give the child a beatdown because this child was at a Martin Luther King Day parade, and apparently she felt that the child was misbehaving somehow, though she couldn't say how. Now, there ought to be criminal charges put on her just for that at a minimum, and there should also be lawsuits flying to get those other council members out of office and that so-called labor leader to remove whatever certifications and credentials they have. You cannot have racist trash like this representing groups and representing a city who has black people in it. This is why we need a black hate crimes bill. Nuri was the one talking the most, but you also had the other Hispanic council members like Kevin DeLeon and Gil Cedillo who were right in there with her. Neither one of them were giving her any pushback. In fact, they were agreeing with her and voicing the same sentiments. Now, for those who may not be aware, the black child in particular who Martinez was making her vile verbal attacks against is the adopted child of a gay white member of the Los Angeles City Council. And Councilman DeLeon, he called this city council member the council's fourth black member. That's what he said about a fellow council member simply because the guy's got an adopted black child. And speaking of that black child in particular, that DeLeon creep compared that child to one of Nuri Martinez's Louis Vuitton handbags. Black people trying to forge some black-brown alliance, and you wonder why it is that people in the grassroots have been saying that's a non-starter. Because you got people like Martinez, along with Kevin DeLeon and Gil Cedillo and Ron Herrera, head of the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor, who are saying that they're on Team White Supremacy. And you won't be surprised at all to learn that Nuri Martinez, Kevin DeLeon, and Gil Cedillo are all Democrats. And their attitude toward black people is no different and no better than Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio. And if you're wondering why it is that this woman, who clearly there must have been rumors about this woman's anti-black racism up until now, why it didn't explode into the headlines before, well, it's because like most good anti-black racists, this Martinez woman makes sure to give herself the occasional rhetorical cover. Up until this recording, Martinez would occasionally go on Twitter and call out Donald Trump's racism, but mostly for what he was doing against Latino migrants. But she also posted a couple of tweets pretending to celebrate Juneteenth, and another one claiming to support measures to defund the biggest street gang in California, the LAPD, all in the name of George Floyd and BLM. See, these anti-black racists, they learned a long time ago to be able to hold their nose while they say decent things about black people. You see how insidious these anti-black racists are? The same way a white supremacist has no problem having sex with a black person and then killing them afterwards, or calling the police on them. So these white supremacist adjacents have no problem paying feeble lip service to our incalculable contributions to their lives, and then immediately turning around and calling black children monkeys and saying to F the DA because he's with the blacks. Sounding just like any old reprobate good old boy from Mississippi or Alabama. That's the well that Martinez, DeLeon, and Cedillo and others draw from. See, this is the reason why trying to use buffer groups as a means to undercut black people telling the world that America's racist could never work. It's obvious that other groups are not treated the same way black people are, and it's also obvious that there is a clear understanding of what other groups are required to do in order to be able to be upgraded by the dominant society. Whether it be the Irish in the 19th century, whether it be Southern Europeans like the Italians and the Greeks in the 20th century, and as we've been seeing for the last few decades, Democrats and Republicans have made it clear they're bypassing black people altogether, and the opportunities are going to be handed to other people of color, meaning anyone but black people. That whole plan to try to make it where they would hold up these other non-white groups and claim, see, they're the evidence that America's not so bad and black people are just making the excuses for their own failures. This is why it was always damned to fail from the beginning. Jim Crow Joe was saying that black people better figure out how to get along with Hispanics because there's more of them than there are of us. By the way, you haven't seen hide nor hair of that senile old fossil since this story broke. I guess he'll be saving the racial lectures for another day, huh? Ron Herrera, the so-called labor leader, showed that he was just a flunky for the other racists. One of the city council's black members, Mark Ridley Thomas, was suspended by the city council after he got indicted. Herrera, the labor leader, said that it was necessary to replace Ridley Thomas regardless of what the political blowback may be. So he wasn't just some labor union guy in the room. He was a part of this conspiracy. He was hoping to lead the charge. He also said that they had to figure out who was going to get Mark's seat, and that whomever they put in there, that person has to support the three of you. He was talking about Martinez, De Leon, and Cedillo. Councilman De Leon suggested that they should nominate Irma Munoz to replace Ridley Thomas. De Leon said that Munoz is married to an African American, so as they see it, her black husband would help cover up for what is a blatantly racial takeover. They learned the same tactics that Republicans and Democrats have used for so long whenever they put nominees in our areas. But ultimately, the person who Gil Cedillo said they ought to nominate to replace Ridley Thomas was a woman named Heather Hutt. As Cedillo put it, the one who supports us is Heather Hutt. And how did their plan to put their hand-picked puppet on the city council work out? Last month, the council installed Heather Hutt as Ridley Thomas's interim replacement. Now, this is just bald-faced collusion. This is malfeasance. This is conspiracy, whatever you want to call it. Well, at least it would be if these were black politicians doing this. But there was also one bit of audio that I found very interesting. Martinez was talking about how the three of them needed to redraw the district map so as to undermine a fellow council member, Nithya Raman. Raman is an immigrant, like Martinez, De Leon, and Cedillo. She also has made trying to address the city's housing crisis a priority. Cedillo said, "She's not our ally. She is not going to help us." Well, given their remarks, we know exactly what kind of allies they're looking for and exactly what kind of help they want. Martinez said that it wasn't in the Hispanic council members' interest for Raman to have a safe council seat, that they should make sure her seat remains uncertain. That is, Raman's district is drawn up in such a way so as to have a lot of people who may be antagonistic toward her, but not for the sake of making sure that Raman does what the city needs, rather as a way to influence or rather force her to do what the three corrupt amigos want. Martinez was particularly adamant that Raman should not be able to have all of Koreatown as part of her district because, as Martinez put it, if you do that, that solidifies her renters district, and that is not a good thing for any of us. You have to keep her on the fence. This is not at all about doing what's best for the city. This is about political leverage for a small, corrupt, racist group in the city. So here they are conspiring to deliberately target other council members and their constituents, people in the city, by drawing up the district lines in a way meant to advantage them and to disadvantage everyone else. So you have the city's Hispanic council members and this so-called labor leader attending a closed-door meeting. And this gang of corrupt bigots talks about how black people are the enemy. They talk about assaulting black children, gerrymandering district lines to support their own corrupt agenda, and how whomever is on the city council has to take orders from them. This is what happens in banana republics and third world countries. This is what's going on right now in places like Mexico, Nicaragua, Colombia, Argentina, Central America, you name it. It's like a bad parody of that scene from The Godfather 2 where the mobsters are carving up a cake of Cuba, only in this case, the mob is stupid, they don't have a plan, and they're being led by an idiot. But Martinez also put her racist credentials on display when talking about other Hispanics, calling immigrants in LA from Osaka short, dark people, which is a common racist stereotype that the Blanco ruling class in Mexico like to use. And she also said she didn't know where these people were from or how they got here, and she went on to call them ugly in Spanish. Now, this is a Hispanic woman talking about other Hispanics like dogs merely because of what shade of brown they are. Now, this is important because for decades we have been told by Hispanic celebrities, politicians, and even people online that Latin American culture isn't racist. They don't classify people by race. Why? That's something that only happens in the US. And black people need to stop imposing US racial politics onto the rest of the world because racism, especially anti-black racism, well, that only exists in the US. In other places, when black people are being treated wrongly and harmed, well, that's because of class factors. They don't care about race in those other places. They don't care about skin color in those other places. That kind of thing simply doesn't exist in Latin America, don't you know? Even these black Latinos will tell you that. Even though the poorest and most oppressed people in Latin America are the Afro-Latinos. Well, everyone's seeing the truth now, and all those people who told us how colorblind and race-neutral Latin American culture is, they're nowhere to be seen right now. They're all in hiding. No one's standing up and saying, well, you can't put that on Latin American culture. Now they're nowhere to be found. None of them are daring to stick their heads up and defend this, or try to make excuses for it. And the reason why is they knew that this was the truth all along. What they were betting on was that something this undeniable, something this grotesque, would never actually come to light. And you know what else you don't see? You don't see the white media running up in the faces of every Hispanic politician and social figure that they can find, asking if they denounce Martinez and her pals Kevin DeLeon and Gil Cedillo. They're not turning this into any sort of litmus test for them. You don't see people like Juju Chang putting out stories on 2020 or Nightline saying that Hispanics need to understand they're harming black people. No one's running around with their hair on fire saying that with politicians acting like this, targeting black people, targeting black children, why there needs to be a black hate crime law. Now, there have been some Los Angelinos who have decided to protest in front of Martinez's home, and she's since adjusted her Twitter bio to show that she recognizes this. And Martinez has now announced that she's going to step down, but only as president of the Los Angeles City Council. She's not going to resign from office. She's simply going to be handing the gavel of the city council president over to somebody else. Meanwhile, she's going to just stay in office and hopefully wait for all this to blow over. See, the Los Angeles City Council voted to suspend Mark Ridley Thomas when he got indicted. In this case, Martinez, DeLeon, and Cedillo all need to be suspended, and any legal measures that the council can take to get them out of office, to keep them from taking part in any city council votes, need to be done, because they've been caught conspiring how to undermine the city for their own personal political gain. The state's attorney general and Justice Department should be brought in to investigate all three of these creeps. But of course that's not going to happen, because they're not black. And make no mistake, the only reason this heifer stepped down as city council president yesterday was because she made comments about other Hispanics, and that undercuts her support with the Latino community. She didn't do it because of anything relating to black people. That didn't matter to her at all. So the city council presidency is going to be handed over to someone else while she still sits there trying to see if she can ride this storm out. And she's not alone. The other two racists, Kevin DeLeon and Gil Cedillo, they're also refusing to resign. And what is the California political machine doing to force them out? Nothing. This is why black people pledging to vote blue no matter who, you sound like a fool. Democrats were the ones who put these racists in office. Democrats made it a point to make sure that Martinez, DeLeon, and Cedillo would be able to come to the United States. And this is what they did when they got here. The anti-black racism in Hispanic culture is not some dirty little secret. It's no secret at all. Remember, the leader of the Proud Boys is Enrique Tarrio. The founder and leader of the Oath Keepers is Stuart Rhodes. His mother is a mestizo Mexican. And then you got others like Nick Fuentes. What Martinez and her pals were doing was no coincidence at all. All of the clowns that you see on cable TV, the bootlicks and the go-along-to-get-along Negroes who have been using the Black-Brown Alliance line, they've been real quiet for now. They're going to try to wait and see if hopefully this goes away. But understand, it is impossible to have a Black-Brown Alliance If you got someone who compares black children to animals, someone who blissfully talks about how they want to harm black children, and they curse the DA because they feel he's not being tough enough on black people. They feel like the DA is standing with black people. Gee, so much for her stupid Twitter tweets claiming that she supports George Floyd's protests and BLM, huh? When that happens, you got someone who's talking the language of genocide, and you better learn to recognize it when you see it. All this is just another reminder that no matter what south of the border video vixen you see in some rapper's video, no matter what some empty-headed wannabe civil rights leader tries to tell you, we have no friends. Not because I said so, but because Martinez, De Leon, Cedillo, and Herrera said so. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Alfonso Mohammed, Deborah Gallman, Vincent Ali, Ron Howard, and Turk McKenzie. Salute to them, and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.